Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Yo, and hello. Bonjour, bienvenue, hola, guten tag.
Das ist so gut, ja?
Yeah, there we go. Hello, welcome to Sneakers and Cleats, episode 138.
Willkommen. Bienvenuti.
There we go. We're international here on Sneakers and Cleats.
We have to because it's Spurs Media Day.
How about that? Yeah, silver and black NBA preseason actually right around the corner. And so we're like the kids who keep going back to the buffet, just keep piling on more. We've got football season, Major League Baseball playoffs. Let's add NBA, please.
You cannot beat the month of October for all things that you just stated.
We're going to get some sports equinoxes going probably, I'm sure.
I'm going to go look up what equinox means. Yes. We'll get that too.
We're also going to fall back and do a little bit of daylight saving time and all that as well.
Nice.
So we'll mix it all in there. Well,
Meteorology today.
he is. And throw in some different topics as well. Chuck Miketinac, I'm Zach Hedrick, guest hosting while Matt Roy takes some well-earned vacation time off, so hope he's enjoying it. So you hit the nail on the head, Chuck. Spurs Media Day today. We're also going to talk, of course, recap some NFL college weekend from football. Lots of stuff happening recently. Cowboys got a win on the road, a division win. Texans looking good with 2-0 start in their division. And then we'll touch on some colleges as well real quickly too. So, and of course, we're excited for Major League Playoffs. They're starting tomorrow.
Yes. We actually have day baseball today and evening baseball.
Ongoing right
and
now.
And the Arizona Diamondbacks sitting on pins and needles.
Hoping for a sweep.
Hoping for some sort of sweep, be it the Mets or be it the Braves.
Meet the Mets.
We're hoping that's the Mets, though.
Step right up. So welcome into episode 138. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the YouTube channels of both News 4 and Fox SA. So download, rate, review the podcast version wherever you can find this podcast on all podcast platforms, whether it be Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I don't know. There's so many out there nowadays, it's hard to keep up. So anyway, let's dive right into Spurs Media Day. But first, we're always going to start with trivia time as well. And in honor, sad news today of Dikembe Mutombo passing away. What an icon. I know I was talking with Don earlier. He couldn't join us today, but he had some great Mutombo stories. I was curious, before we ask the trivia question, do you have any Dikembe Mutombo stories?
Yes. In fact, whenever I think of some of these guys that you kind of grew up with, and I mean that obviously from afar, but, we didn't see a lot of the East here in San Antonio, but Mutombo was a perennial all-star. And if you go to 7 or 8 all-star games in a row, you might be around one of these guys, for 5 or 10 minutes, at least a year. So you add that up over time, you get a sense for, what kind of guys these might be. I obviously didn't know them very well, but all I know is, Zach, that when Dikembe Mutombo walked into the room, he was so good-natured and so fun-loving that the energy in the room, all of a sudden, everything felt a little bit better. Always a huge personality, and, we did a little bit with him once, and I don't remember the year, but it was Alamo Dome era Spurs, and we asked him at the end if he would do an ID for our sports show, which he did, and he did it in French, and it was just so classic. Je m'appelle Dikembe Mutombo, and he had the gruff voice and everything.
Voice, yeah.
Always just the life of the party, and, I was sad because for many reasons, obviously, because he was such a life force, but, tremendous basketball player, but, I didn't know he was sick either, so.
Yeah, that seemed like it was kind of closely guarded, that news that he had, brain cancer that he was dealing with. So definitely gone way too soon, 58 years young as Dikembe Mutombo. But Don had similar stories, just the generosity and the gratefulness that he had, being here and playing a game. I don't want to steal Don's thunder. Maybe Don can relay that story next time he's on here or something. But
he said he got a whole lot from asking just a hello. And,
yeah, exactly.
Just how grateful he was to be in this country playing basketball, playing a game and getting paid very well for it. Just, I think that emanated from his life force
shifts your
every
perspective.
single day,
Shifts
or at
your
least every time I
perspective.
saw him.
Yeah,
Yes.
shifted your perspective whenever you spoke with him. So, in honor of Dikembe Mutombo, the trivia question today: how many career blocks does Dikembe Mutombo have? No cheating, no Googling. I mean, but you probably can.
Yes, I would have to at this point.
And it's kind of a two-parter trivia question. Where does he rank on the all-time list for career blocks in the NBA ABA? No.
It's funny how you were telling me, right? I mean, the kids today are still
They're
doing
still
that.
well, and I remember too, I think there was some insurance commercial that he was doing too. I can't remember Allstate, Aflac, whatever, but I remember him running around, he's swatting everything down, and he comes up and he swats down one of the letters and stuff, and off he runs and stuff. So it's just great. So
Yeah.
still, post-career, he's still having fun with it. So all right, so diving into Spurs Media Day, Chuck, we heard from so many people. Coach Pop starting us off. We heard from half a dozen players: Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, Chris Paul, sporting his new number 3 jersey. Of course, everybody wanted to know, how did that transaction go between you and Keldon? It went fine. Didn't sound like, not too much was given up for that, so they didn't want to reveal their hands too much. We also heard from Jeremy Sohan, and of course, last but not least, Victor Wembanyama, the kid wonder. So, I don't know. I don't like taking too much from this because, of course, it's like the first day of school. Everybody's excited.
Sure.
It's a new season. Everybody's looking forward to it, seeing what these new additions can do. Of course, I think the big thing that Pop was talking about, hey, what are the expectations? And it's just like, hey, they're always what they are since I took over the job here, is to be up there in contention. And of course, he added to that of, well, everybody needs to improve and up their game. So what you would expect from Coach Pop. And Don asked a really good question of just what did he see from Victor, especially during the Olympics. Here was Pop's response.
His aggressiveness was the big thing, in physicality, the way you just mentioned, in all honesty. He's understanding what it takes, what he's going to get, and what he has to give back to counter that kind of thing. And FIBA is much more aggressive than the NBA. So it was a wonderful little petri dish for him, so to speak, to be able to have to do that every day and every game. And that's where he really rose as it went along. And secondly, I think you mentioned confidence, and again, you're correct. I think he scored 26 points against the USA team in the finals, that kind of thing. And it was kind of like a David Robinson thing where I didn't really know he had 26 points. You just kind of watch him play, but he did this and he did that, and he did a lot of different things. The game would end sometimes with David. I'd say, what the hell did David do tonight? Say, Pop. They'd say 24 points, 12 rebounds, so and so and so and so. It was like that with Victor because he can do so many different things. So those two areas, he was great.
All right, so there you have it. I don't know. Of course, everybody was kind of asking this question. Hey, what did you watched the Olympics? What did you see from Wemby and everything like that? The two takeaways from Pop, I think fans have to like hearing that: his strength, and then just his confidence growing and getting more comfortable into just who he is as a player.
Yeah, I think, and I'm super guilty of this. There's a penchant. I have a penchant for maybe taking some of his gifts for granted, right? Like, even if you think he's having a bad night, you look up at the end of this and he's double-digit rebounds, double-digit points. And so he's going to spread the stat sheet naturally by being on the floor with his gifts. Obviously, he's still a young guy. There's plenty of room for growth. But, I like what Pop said, too. I'm kind of shocked to actually hear the fact that he said that FIBA is more aggressive than the NBA. I think if most fans are being honest with what the NBA has become recently, that there really is no malice in what he's saying. It's Pop speaking truth.
Yeah.
And
He's calling it like it is.
I 100% agree, right? There's probably something about guys that are playing for the flag on their uniform as opposed to,
Sure.
maybe a buddy that they know across the street that's playing for a different color uniform here. But I think there is a lot to gain from Victor, and he seems to be malleable enough to, if he sees like there's some inertia coming at him that maybe he's not equipped to handle, he's going to do what he can to get better in that area so that he can turn a deficiency into one of his strengths. And, I think that's going to serve him very well. Going through that experience, again, the give and take, the yin and the yang, maybe you do need to get stronger. But you're already pretty good doing this right now. What's going to happen, if you do, get in the weight room a little more, work on your stamina a little more, work on, maybe less on your finesse and more on your power game, all these things, room for growth. I don't see how it could have done anything but benefit him, and thankfully he didn't get hurt along the way.
And Victor isn't the only player on this roster who got to play international ball this summer. Jeremy Sohan playing for the Polish national team as well. So a lot of guys got this exposure and this experience of playing on a different level and playing this type of ball. So you got to think that, that's got to be a good stepping stone for these guys heading into this, again, another developmental year that I think, people are, there's going to be some more growing pains. Yes, of course, as everybody kind of fits into new roles, maybe or, different, just what is being asked of me from this team. But there's still this kind of, hey, you're expected to take some big steps this year.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest challenge will be, can they figure some of that stuff out earlier than later? Last year it took them a while to figure out exactly who was going to play where, what their role was. But, I still go back to that bulletin board material that they put up before the rodeo road trip, or it was around that time, where it was, essentially be a good teammate.
Mm-hmm.
Do what's best, be in service to your guys, know when you need to go. But, part of that too is recognizing all aspects of what's going on in the game. And I think they'll be better at that this year, having gone through what they went through last year, that there won't be as much of a learning curve for this group, you would hope, than the one that they had last year assembled.
Well, and two additions to help them along that learning curve, Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul, they're brought in for this very purpose to kind of help Pop maybe kind of teach these guys. So it's like they're not hearing it from, the same voice over and over again. They're going to hear it from somebody else who's got some more skins on the wall, as you like to say, of, hey, these guys have been there, done that in the NBA, so listen to them. Don't listen to, you don't have to listen to me all the time. Listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, I mean, you just sneaky moves, right? It's like you can say, well, this guy's a little long in the tooth, this, that, and the other, but, there's more to playing basketball than just putting a ball in the hole, right? Or playing defense or doing whatever. I mean, you're talking about two guys that have done it for a long time, Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul, and these guys are consummate teammates, right? Mm-hmm. Talk about selfless service to others, right, when you're on the floor. I mean, these guys are always thinking big picture, not about them. It's never been about these guys, even though they've both been highly acclaimed players and well-earned spots in the league. So who better to learn from than guys that have already been there, done that? And I think it's both very shrewd moves in a lot of ways. And, what it's going to equate to, 50 more wins or whatever the case may be. Again, some of this is you're bridging the gap between what you have now and what you hope will be. And, whether Chris Paul's here 2 years, 3 years, a year, Harrison Barnes, same thing. I mean, I think the pearls of wisdom that these guys are going to be able to impart on those that are willing to accept some of that wisdom, then you might be onto something here.
Well, and kind of on that note a little bit, Don, once again, bringing up a question to Devin Vassell, asking him, hey, what was your reaction when it was announced that CP3 was going to be coming in here to kind of help you guys speed things along a little bit and learn how to all interact and play together and be more competitive in these games when it's like, hey, y'all are right there. Y'all just need to learn how to win. Here was Devin Vassell's response.
I was super excited. The first thing I've always been saying pretty much since I've got here is just more veteran leadership, and I feel like that's the first thing that he's going to bring. He's a voice, he's talking even through open gym. Even today, like he's always talking, just bringing, good words of encouragement, words of wisdom, and, I'm excited for that. For us to be able to take that next step, we need leaders and veterans and people who are going to help the locker room, and he's what better guy than CP.
So, again, nothing official yet, but, yeah, these guys have already had some impromptu workouts, pick-up games, just, kind of getting a feel for each other right now. Now it's like you get into the crucible of, okay, yeah, now we start working with each other and get into the day in, day out of here's how you go about, learning how to win games and become a better team just collectively.
Right. And I think, too, like for Devin Vassell, obviously he's a smart guy. He's a Duke guy, right? They don't let you joke your way into that place.
Yeah.
So, I think, you can observe from afar, what it takes to win on the reg at this level. And I'm sure he's done a lot of that. I don't think that he's fearless in any way. I mean, he'll take the last shot if it need. I mean, there's no passive. What's the word? You're being passive, but it's plural. Passivity?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, we'll just go with passive. Like, he's not the passive kind of guy, right? So having a guy like Chris Paul, I would think, too, would be calming in a lot of ways, too, right? These guys have been in every fight that you could possibly imagine on the court. And, to be around that all the time, on the plane, having a dinner with a guy, picking your brain. What would you do in this situation? Or this was the situation that presented itself tonight. You hear what the coach had to say after the game, but when you get away from it all, what's being said? How can we do this better the next time? I mean, all that's going to be absolutely invaluable.
Chris Paul at 20, getting ready to go into his 20th year in the league, and he's still doing it, maybe not at quite the level that, he was, but it's like, hey, you still got a job in the NBA, so you're able to do something right. And then Harrison Barnes, a championship, pedigree in his own right, was also at the beginning stages of that Golden State era where Steph and Clay are all getting together. So he's been on kind of that rising up of building a dynasty. So here's what they had to say on what they can bring to this young team in kind of these veteran coach-like roles.
Talking with a lot of these guys, I think the difference between me and CP is like 7 years, and then like the difference between me and Jeremy is probably 11 years. So I mean, we have a wide spectrum of guys on this roster, but I think the biggest thing is just establishing habits. It's how do you continue to get better every day and judge yourself on an internal metric versus trying to see external approval, right? That's what you try to do every single day in this league, and it's difficult, especially as a young guy, trying to get established and things like that. But I think for all of our guys, just trending in the right direction is going to pay dividends for us now and in the long term.
I'll have to get to know the guys. They'll have to get to know me. Me and Harrison, of course, we've known each other, but never been on the same team. So there's a building phase and a process to it. But I'm sure anybody on the team will tell you we want to learn and build and try to win at the same time. I think the biggest thing that I hope I can bring to this team is just the competitiveness, right? We talk about it all the time. Playing hard is a talent, but it's not enough, right? So this team here done already showed the ability to play hard and to compete night in and night out, but now we got to figure out how to translate that to wins. And so I'm hoping I can help with that.
So your thoughts from those two guys, Chuck, after hearing them?
It just made me think about all the conversations I've had with baseball players lately. I mean, like, there's a plan, right? Every day there's a plan. When I get up, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Then I'm going to get to the ballpark. I'm going to do this, this, and this. Then I'm going to get to the game. And then all these habits that you're building every single day, the repetition of it, it's basically the repetition just gets in the way of what happens during the game. And then ultimately, if you stay true to these work habits and these patterns of behavior, ultimately they become natural. And when they become more natural, you play more free and you do what you now are, basically have taken into you and are now inherent. I just think it's fascinating that it all sounds like it's the same thing for those that excel. And, maybe if you're a younger team, you haven't been exposed to, rest, steady diet, or maybe sticking to the diet. I know they've been exposed to these things, but, how important it really is. If you look at a Harrison Barnes, does that guy look like he's ever doing anything but doing the right thing all the time and sticking to the habits?
Well, and that's what Chris Paul said. He said HB, Harrison Barnes, is a consummate pro. And just the way he goes about his day, those guys were out in California, the LA area, before they came here to San Antonio. And Chris Paul revealed that it's like, hey, we've been working out like 3 times a week before we came over here. So it's like they've gotten to kind of develop a bond a little bit. And you got to think that those two are going to show these guys the way, that level of consistency of, no doubt, the Spurs have exposed all these young players to, hey, here's what you got to do, the rest, recovery, the details, and all that kind of thing. But then to actually see 2 guys who have been in the league, been there, done that, and have them go through it and show them, take them by the hand and go, here's what you need to do. that just will probably take him and get him over that proverbial hump, right?
Absolutely. That, and, like little things like, Keldon Johnson reinventing his body during the offseason and all the effort and time that he's put into it. Charles Bassey, guys like that are doing all these things on the side. This just feels a little different, all of it, than it did last year at this time. And maybe we weren't necessarily thinking about these things last year. And I'm not saying that they didn't happen last year, but it just feels like there's more inertia behind everybody taking a step. What that looks like, I don't know. Somebody said playoffs or bust, and I'm paraphrasing here, but but that to me, yes, has to be the goal, right?
Sure.
Let's make sure we're playing meaningful basketball all year long, because the goal is to see if we can extend our season.
And some players were a little bit more forward in saying that, yeah, playoffs, that's it. That's our goal. And others were, a little bit more hedging their bets, so to speak, I guess. But you could tell just in their responses and body language, it's like, yeah, we're not taking a back seat. It's like we're not, looking to repeat what we had last year.
Yeah, and I think, like for most teams, right, or for most guys playing any sport, it's like, I didn't come here to lose, right? I mean, did you come here to lose? No. You came here to try to win or do something.
I don't have the latest Vegas, lines or anything like that. Don't know those, but probably around, you would say 35, 36 wins, I think, is maybe what the Spurs are projected. So before we move on to our next topic, just do you think they're above or below that number?
I would hope above it. That's going to be my mindset going in. It was last year. I don't see any reason to change it. I mean, why set your expectations below that, right? Then why play the season if that's all you think there is, right? So from my standpoint, not having a dog in the hunt, go high or go home.
Yeah. Well, and we'll find out soon enough. I mean, the season opener on the road in Dallas against the defending Western Conference champions coming up on October 24th. They'll be here before you know it.
Jeez,
and
you're
we'll
not
add
kidding.
another ball club to pay attention to as we enter into the fall months. Bob, we good on anything?
Our businessman Tom Guerrero is in the
Shout out
God
Tom
love him.
Guerrero.
Yes, always.
He says, I see the Spurs being very competitive this year, even if they stay healthy. Then he said they did turn it around after the All-Star break last season. Then a regular Robert Smith says, anybody know the starting lineup yet? Any predictions on that?
Coach Pop, his sassy self, said, I don't know a starting five yet, but he had a feeling that I think Victor will start, is kind of, and I'm not, quoting him saying exactly what his response was, but he's just like, I'm pretty sure Victor will start, and that's as far as I've gotten.
Yeah, and I think he did say something to the effect of, these guys are going to let me know who starts, right?
Yeah.
Like there are going to be some battles in camp to see who does what, and it's obviously subject to change as we go through the course of the year. So not necessarily the five guys that start at the beginning will be the same five starters at the end, and then they'll figure out what or how best to disperse the minutes. So I'm fascinated with all that too. And it's just like they've said repeatedly, are you going to add new pieces? Are you going to do this? And, like the mantra was last year at this time, this team will dictate, the team that we have here right now, how we proceed forward.
Right.
And so part of how they proceeded forward was, we're going to go get two sage veterans, and we hope that helps build this younger core and what we're trying to do going forward.
And at least the only experimentation that they don't do is sticking a forward at a point guard position. So hopefully that won't happen again. I'm sure it won't.
I kind of see him working with that. I'm like, if it would have hit, it would have been really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe there is a place for that again. I mean, it used to be you'd have the traditional point guard and go 1 through 5. And in some respects, the Spurs do have those players. But, this league is evolved to the point where it's a bunch of cheetahs on the floor, and you just
athletes
1 through
all over.
5 don't
Yeah.
look
There's
that far different from each other.
Positionless basketball.
Yes.
If you want to, be sure to check out news4sa.com and foxsanantonio.com. We will have all the podium interviews from Spurs Media Day posted up there. So if you want to watch them all and just binge to your Spurs fans' delight, have at it. It'll be up there later on today. They're already up now, I'm told.
There you go.
Bob is all over it, so there we go.
It's a good Monday thing if you're looking for something to fill the sports void today.
There you go.
And
So-
the Braves and Mets ain't doing it for you.
All right, so before we move on to our next couple of topics, we will revisit our trivia question. Once again, today's trivia question for episode 138. How many career blocks does Dikembe Mutombo have? And where does he rank on the all-time list for blocks? Chuck, do you have any inclination on where this might be?
So bad at this. I mean, he's got a lot. I'll say he's top 5. How about that?
Well,
Does
yes,
that put
you're
me
in the
sphere?
ballpark,
Okay.
yes. But can you give us a number?
All right,
of
I'll
wh-
say 3.
So almost one more above that.
Okay.
He is 3,289. He is ranked second on the all-time career list with that finger wag. 600 behind first place. So that,
Who's first?
I believe that's Akeem.
Really? Okay.
So
Good
I
on
think
Akeem. What else couldn't he
we'll
do?
double check here. I
Okay.
should have marked that down. I was
Okay,
looking at
should-
it earlier.
I shouldn't have ambushed
I
you.
haven't had very much
'Cause I
sleep,
sure-
so
wouldn't
I
know
don't
either.
have it very
NBA
much on.
all-time blocks leader. I think Bob's going to Google
Bob
right
might
now.
beat me on the because he's got a keyboard.
It's Elijah one.
There we
Oh,
go.
nice.
So there we
All
go.
right.
Wow, you're right though. So close.
Wow, I would have never guessed Akeem. God
then-
bless that guy.
Oh, Mark Eaton at number 4.
Oh,
There you go. So
Mark
got to
Eaton.
figure Wemby
brings
will
me
be
back to the
creeping
good
up
old
that.
days.
You got to figure Wemby will be creeping up that list before his career is said
No
and
question
done.
about it, right? He may have it like in the next 3 years.
Probably.
The way he's going.
All right, so moving on to we're going to switch gears now to football. Chuck, a lot to cover. I know Matt and y'all were talking Cowboys and their need to win. They went out, did what they needed to do, got a win on the road against the Giants. Not the prettiest, but hey, I think you saw some signs that the Cowboys took a step. But it came at a cost because, golly, that defense keeps getting snake bitten by injuries.
Yeah, the D-line obviously really banged up, and then sadly the news got worse over the weekend that DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be out minimum a month. But thankfully, the Liz Frank injury that he has in his foot, from what I understand and what we've been able to read on the internet, that the bones weren't displaced because two had that injury, and it's surprising looking at the scans from that
How long it takes.
Yeah, and that he was actually able to come back as well as he has.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, tough break. And then, Micah with the ankle. And just when you thought they couldn't get any more thin along the D-line, I mean, I just don't know how they're going to do it going forward. But, to your broader point, it may not look good, blah, blah, blah. Man, wins are wins this time of year. And if you can survive these injuries and – just
find
stay
a way.
afloat, man. You're around 500. You give yourself a chance. It's basically win or, you try to win every single week and survive and then get to the next game and, manage the season. The coaches have their hands full with all that. So, yes, they got out a win bonus given who they lost on defense.
As always, a war of attrition when it comes to injuries for the NFL. The latest from Todd Archer on Micah Parsons. He's wearing a boot and using a scooter to move around to save that left high ankle sprain. Did not completely rule himself out of Pittsburgh's game, but I mean,
Love it.
Who knows?
Contract year, baby.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I take that back. I think Micah Parsons would be that dude anyway because he's played banged up pretty much every year he's been in the league. So if there's anybody that can come back from a high ankle sprain, it's probably that guy.
We'll keep an eye on it as the week unfolds. Quickly moving on, we'll keep it rapid fire here. Texans edging out the Jaguars. Probably should have led with that since the Texans actually played this past Sunday, but Texans 2-0 to start off in the AFC South.
Yeah, and they obviously needed that win. I mean, I don't know that I thought that would be a close game or that they would need to score a late touchdown in order to win that game. But again, it's a long season. The other guys get paid too, and nobody was more desperate for a win than Jacksonville. So, good on the Texans. They responded nicely to the butt thumping that they got the week before at Minnesota. So, again, big thing, stay ahead of the chains in this thing, and the Texans are doing a really good job of
One
it.
silver lining maybe for Texans fans is, Minnesota put it on your Green Bay Packers, hard to say. They jumped out, to a big 3-score lead, I guess.
Yes, but let's not forget, in that game yesterday, because I won't, the Packers had 4 turnovers, 2 missed field goals, and 8 penalties, and it was a 1-score game. So we're coming for you, Minnesota.
Parity
now, I don't want
always
to take
wins.
anything away from Minnesota either, because 4-0, you can't joke your way to 4-0. That's a tough road game for them to win. They did it, and they are doing it too, like ham and an egg. I mean, did anybody think Sam Darnold would be as functional and as good as he's been? I don't think so.
Yep.
So good on Sam Darnold.
Not too many people had that on their bingo card. I know we made note of it last night in Max Sports, but 3 straight games of 10 or more penalties for Houston. How much of an issue do you make of that?
Well, it's concerning, but you have time to fix it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool that you have these problems and you know that they're going to get better from that, and yet they're still winning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to be able to stack wins even at that penalty rate. That's the thing that's kind of bitten the Cowboys over the years, but they've won some games where they've had some big penalties, but those things have cost them too, especially late in the year when they've done it. So, I think it's harder for these teams to have continuity early in the season, given the amount of time that they're allowed to have on the field nowadays. It's just harder. So to think that you might be a little sloppier the first month of the season, I think everybody gets a pass until further notice.
Quickly checking in on the college ranks, UTSA falling in their American Conference opener for this season on the road at East Carolina. Tough environment to play in. Looked like they were playing pretty solidly in the first half, in control of the game. East Carolina got a late score to make it close, 13-10 at the half, and that was the start of 24 unanswered for the Pirates. Game kind of got away, but still UTSA had a chance late. Their defense kept giving them chances, but again, it's never usually just one thing. Turnovers, penalties again kind of reared their head. It seemed like inexperience, and being on the road kind of nipped the Roadrunners in the bud.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating week, right? Because they have a bye, and then they have Rice coming up. How much can they learn about themselves during the course of this period of time? I don't know, I'm just always fascinated, too. Like, teams look different every year. UTSA hasn't looked all that different for like a 2 or 3 year stretch, right? It was pretty much the same dudes that were winning them games every week. And now this new core of guy has to figure that stuff out. And it's not easy to do. You have to do it in a game. You got to see it to believe it sometimes, but there's a process to go through that kind of stuff too. And these were the kind of games, Zach, that, as you know, they found a way to win over the last couple of years, and maybe we should give them a little grace while they're trying to figure it out. I mean, ample opportunities to win that game, and a play here, a play there, we always say it. Well, so it's a matter of just making those plays, and the story on this season hasn't been fully written yet, so let's see if they can figure it out.
And Jeff Traylor always made it a point these past couple of seasons when they didn't get off to the greatest of starts. The hieroglyphics, he called them, it was like the trend was always moving up, and they would rip off 10 wins in a row or 8 or 9 or whatever it was. And then you look back on seasons in, and it's like, yeah, we didn't get off to the greatest of starts, but man, did they finish well.
Right. And I think, to his credit too, even when they were winning those close games, he said, "How did you win today?" And he'd say, "Frank Harris, Rashad Wisdom."
Right.
And it's like, well, now you know what he's talking about. You can coach and you can scheme and you can game plan. At some point, players have to go make plays. And
Got to have gamers.
And, that's not to say that they don't, right? It's just at some point, it's either going to
Gotta
happen
know how
or
to
it's
do
not.
it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Got to know how to do it. So Chuck and everybody else, Matt, y'all will dive into the matchups. Of course, UTSA, Texas being on a bye. There's not too much college football going on,
Right.
except A&M does have a big matchup with Missouri coming up this weekend. That should be fun. So more previews coming up later on Thursday. Right now, quickly, before we get out of here, Major League Playoffs, Major League Baseball playoffs starting tomorrow. Wild card rounds getting going. Houston hosting the Detroit Tigers. 3 straight games there in H-Town, a best-of-3 series. What's your outlook for the American League side of the playoff bracket?
I think it's, like every year, you can see the Astros getting on a roll with those 5 starting pitchers, especially in a short series. But do you really want to play the Tigers? I know they handled the Tigers 4-2 during the regular season, but most
it was
of those
early.
were early, yes. And then you have all of them were early, actually. But they're the hottest team. So that usually pays dividends, and I can't wait to see what happens tomorrow starting at 1:32.
And Astros caught a little bit of a break thanks to Mother Nature. They got an extra rest day because they only had to play 161, right? I mean, so.
Yes. Well, by the time they canceled that game in Cleveland, it was probably a wash. But, it'll just be fascinating. They're coming off of the road. The Tigers obviously coming off the road. And so I'm sure the Houston faithful that packed the stadium on Tuesday will let them know, though, that they are home, and they'll give them a little bit of a juice bump.
Quick prediction time. Who do you think reaches the ALCS? I'm hoping for a Houston Yankees ALCS because that just, in years past, you remember Aroldis Chapman and Jose Altuve and the home run and, is he, wearing something or not?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. You know me well enough to know, Zach, I'm at the point in the year where I'm pulling for local guys at this point, right? I want to see Westberg and the Orioles do well.
Yeah.
I want to see Jason the Tigers do well.
Sure.
Last year this time, Jace was doing interviews for us at Josh's playoff games,
Right.
Interviewing the parents and doing nice stuff for us. And now this guy's in the postseason. And then James MacArthur's with the Royals. I don't know if he's going to be able to come back because he's got an elbow issue going on. But, another area guy that's had a pretty good year playing Major League Baseball. So I'm pulling for local guys. The default is always the Astros, though, of course. And Rangers if they get in.
Right.
Hey, Chuck, I just got a quick question.
Yes.
How do you feel about the Tribe? Do you think
They're good, man. They're really good. I mean, and man, Carlos, the dude he's a freaking beast, man. I mean, and pro's pro. They're just steady as she goes, and I don't know. They're scary, and they don't have everybody else on task, especially with, you never know what you're going to get with the Yankees this time of year. Yeah. And thankfully, recently it's been not good.
We'll see what unfolds. And then quickly, just to address the National League side, the Dodgers and the Philadelphia Phillies getting the 2 byes into the divisional round. The Dodgers have just been a juggernaut, as they usually are in the regular season. Now they have probably the greatest player getting his first taste of postseason ball on a 50-50 season.
Did you see him warming up in the bullpen today?
Oh, really? Shohei? How about that?
Of course they're going to unleash that.
Yeah, sure. Just throw that out there. A little wrinkle.
So, yeah, it would be
just
good
put
for
it in your
baseball,
head.
Right? I don't know. I mean, who do you see coming out? I mean, again, anybody gets in the National League, would you bet against any of those teams? I sure
Philly
as hell didn't see the D-backs getting
Philly
out there
with
last year.
Schwarber in the leadoff spot. It's like usually you want that disruptor, that speedy guy, and then it's just like, yeah, no, let's trot Schwarber out there and just hit a tank, and we're already up 1-0. There we go.
Right.
Or
the leadoff prototype.
yeah, I don't know. A lot of pressure usually on the Dodgers just because it's like they get to this point and it's always like 90 wins or 100 wins, and then it's just like they always are early exits in the first or second round. So it's like, can they, now with this massive lineup and they have all the players, all this bankroll, can they actually get it across the finish line?
Be fascinating to all watch.
Always fun. October baseball is the best.
Amen.
So
There's
looking
only one
forward to that.
October.
There you go. And it's going to be on Fox right here. So be sure to tune in to
Some
Fox
of it,
SA,
yeah.
right?
Yes, we'll have some of it. I think
ALC
we have the National League this
National
year
League this
and
year.
the World Series.
There you go.
But we'll
So,
see how Fox decides to
stuff
carve
look,
it up.
Lots of stuff coming down the pipe here with NFL, college. We got Red River coming up in a couple weeks. Texas trying to hang on to that number 2 spot. That's going to be a fun game. Just tons of stuff coming with, of course, NBA basketball returning. So that's going to wrap it up for us, for this episode of Sneakers and Cleats. Again, remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, and give us a 5-star rating if you are so inclined. That's going to wrap it up for us today. He's Chuck. I'm Zach. We will see y'all back here on Thursday.
Who is it? Like, we're at the All-Star game. You need that question of, hey, if you had one superpower from one of these guys, what would it be? And freaking Simeon goes Ramirez from Cleveland. Man, if I could take that guy's approach, his ability to do it over a long period of time, to play like him, he goes, it would be